So, Michelle.
Oh, my God, David.
Yeah, mate, it's really busy at the moment. It's a bit crazy with the whole intelligence world. I mean, Ukraine's on fire and China is flying around a lot and all this sort of stuff. But
and more people are falling out of windows.
Yeah,
Or overboard.
Yeah.
Someone fell overboard.
I reckon he went out a porthole. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's like he's not even hiding it anymore.
No.
Flags just like, let's just chuck him out a window.
It's like literally raining executives.
Exactly. It's like if you want a job in the energy industry, go to Russia. You'll have it, not for long, but you will have it.
Yeah. And the exit strategy isn't a lot.
It's pretty harsh. But I want to go back to a listener request. This came through on our Twitter feed at iSpied Podcast.
At iSpied Podcast.
At iSpied Podcast.
Oh, at iSpied Podcast?
Have you noticed I'm not going...
Yeah.
I'm doing the right thing.
I know. I love how you're saying it properly. It's at iSpied Podcast.
At iSpied Podcast.
Great.
Right. So this came through and it was a question from a listener, and I'm really sorry I can't remember which person it was. But basically they went, if secrets are so important, why do we keep telling everyone what we're doing? And her thing was, why do we keep talking about the planes we've got and the tanks we've got and the boats we've got? And it's like, I went, that's a really good question. So I went into my little blanket fort of sadness.
Yeah, it didn't come out for 3 days.
And I've just come out. And boy, do I have a story to tell you.
Can't wait. You're listening to I Spy, the maverick of Australian intelligence.
There's only one man who can do this, and it's me. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to fly that plane the way no one's ever flown the plane before. Upside down backwards with a girl inside, drinking a martini that I made, throwing bottles around. How many more references to me can I make?
Hello and welcome to I Spied. My name's Michelle Stevenson. I'm here with David Callan. And look, we're going to talk about secretive defence programs or of the ilk.
Yep.
Before we get stuck into it, though, I do want to say a big hello to our number one fan.
Who's that?
It's my 9-year-old son.
No way.
Bay Ryder McLean. Now, he literally, every time it comes on in the car, he's like, oh my God, this is my favourite podcast. And so I just thought I'd give him a sneaky little shout out.
Thanks, Bay.
I know, he really loves it.
My boys, when they hear it, they go, oh, God, this again.
Oh, God, Dad's still talking. See, he's at the age where he's not sick of me yet. It's really amazing.
Bay. It'll happen, trust me.
It will happen.
It won't. You're the mum.
I know.
You never fall out of love with your mum.
Which is why I'm so thankful I have a boy.
You're really lucky. I'm a dad. I'm screwed either way.
They hate you.
They just hate me. Right, now, here's the defence programs.
Okay.
There's a lot of money that goes into defence programs. We spend a lot of money.
Okay, interestingly, so the US is now, I think it's somewhere in this year, is somewhere in like the 300 trillion mark. Now, that was way more than what they were spending when they were wrapped up in Afghanistan and stuff like that. So it's just interesting. They spend so much money defending themselves from who?
Well, that's a really, really good point. All right. This is why when I first saw the question, I went, oh, really? That's a good. I suppose that's a good question. And then I went, I'll have a look. And then it was just like, oh, mind blown.
Yeah.
You know, that gif of the guy doing that with all the stars around. Sorry.
Yeah, it's an emoji.
It's an emoji.
You can emoji it.
No, it's not an emoji.
It is an emoji.
Oh, there is an emoji. It's a little. Yeah, right. Good.
All right, Boomer.
Hello. Well, look, television. How exciting, right? Free to air. I think I'll watch something with commercials.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, we have all of these secrets and we have all of these amazing programs and we do spend a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
Like the Americans actually spend more money than the next 5 countries combined,
put together.
Right?
I know.
And hang on, they're not winning. That's the other thing that's really interesting.
But also they're not fighting anyone. So I don't understand why you're spending all this money because you've got
always fighting someone.
No. But like, you've got high inflation, you've got a country that is really struggling to pay their grocery bills. You've got petrol prices, but sure we're going to spend trillions.
Yep. Oh, who's a boomer now? I just heard a glung from a computer and it wasn't me.
It was a very important message.
Yes.
Keep
right.
going.
So you're absolutely right.
Yep.
There is all of this money that's needed elsewhere, but we're spending it in certain places.
Yeah.
Like, there was a really interesting point that was made, and it was when I was working at ASIO that this came up because I brought the same question up to one of our analysts. I went, why do they spend so much money when they're not in a war?
Yeah.
And back then they weren't in a war, and then suddenly they were in Iraq.
Yeah.
And he turned around and he said, basically, if the Americans turned around and went, right, we're going to stop all defence spending for a day, literally the entire world would go into recession.
Right.
Right, because there is so much money going out around the world or moving around the world because of these weapons, right, and this research and development. Now, a really great example is the F-35 strike fighter.
Yeah.
Our little stealth plane that's really cool and everything, and eventually we'll get into the air, hopefully. Now, we are receiving them. We're getting them now, and they're slowly coming online. The British Navy have finally got them flying off the decks of their aircraft carriers and have just announced in Janes that, yes, these are now operational. We can use them in a combat situation. Will they? Probably not. They're very expensive.
Well, the US Air Force admitted that the stealth fighter has actually failed.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So, and they spent something insane on it, like some insane amount of money. And
hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah. And they've just admitted that it's actually failed.
Yeah. Now,
so it has a sticker price of around $100 million per plane.
Yeah, you know what? I'm in the market for a new car. I'm thinking of getting a Lexus. Anyway.
Don't get a Lexus.
Why not?
Well, it's expensive to fix.
No, it's fine. It's a
Get
Toyota.
a Kia. The new Kias look amazing. The new Kia is the car to get super cheap to fix. Really? No, but they look really good.
Yeah, I hope anyway.
I know, we'll be sponsored.
Yeah,
Go.
right. Kia and Northrop Grumman, can you please sponsor us? Right, so here's the thing. The F-35 was commissioned, like it was Lockheed Martin. They said, Lockheed Martin, we want you to make this. And they turned around to Northrop Grumman, another arms company, and went, can you make the airframe and also the avionics for this? And then and here's the thing. The whole idea is ladies and gentlemen, defence is a bit of a boondoggle. It's a bit of a swindle, right?
Oh, we knew that. And I mean, that's where all the conspiracy theories came about from September 11.
Yeah.
Because it was like, well, the US perpetuated this war so that the big people can make money.
Can make more by selling arms.
War.
Exactly, right? Now, every now and then we need a war just so we can make more money flow around the system.
The war. Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about the F-35 is when you look at where it's made everywhere to the point where they have
a bit of this and a bit of that.
They have a little bit of a security issue with it right now because it's got a piece of Chinese technology in it.
And Russia.
And right. So there's all these different bits and pieces that are all inside this machine, right, that doesn't really deliver.
Yep.
Now, the interesting thing is when you look at all of these fifth generation fighters, and it's meant to be the very best of the best, the F-35.
Yeah.
Which makes you go, well, if it's the best of the best, what the hell are the Chinese and the Russians and everybody else flying, right? The whole thing with this is, it's like, why do we talk about it? If these things are so secret and so important and so expensive, why do we talk about it? First and foremost is accountability. If you're the Department of Defense and you're spending trillions of dollars.
Trillions.
The voting public are going to want to know what the hell's going on, as is, say, Parliament or in America, Congress.
Yep.
So they're going to want to know. So you've got to justify the cost, right? The other thing is...
So you just build planes that will never work.
Well, don't forget the other thing is a lot of, particularly in America, the congressmen really, really like having defence programs in their electorates because that's money coming into their electorate. That's people getting jobs. And therefore they keep going. Now, an interesting thing came up. Have you ever heard of it's called Milvaco? Milvaco, Queensland. It's part of Rheinmetall. Rheinmetall.
No.
There was footage of Scott Morrison going around a racetrack in a tank. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like it was last year. He was just going around. He's like his head sticking out the tank, and it's going around and around in circles on a racetrack. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that racetrack is actually a testing track at Milvaco, Military Vehicle Centre of Excellence. It was a project that was built in Queensland. Now, 3 states wanted that. South Australia, because they lost their car industry. Victoria, because they lost their car industry. And Queensland, because they wanted a car industry. Now, here's the thing. It went to Queensland. The least likely of all states to take it, it went to Queensland. Can you think why? You had Geelong, which is like...
The weather.
Used to be a car factory, right? You had Adelaide, which used to be a car factory. You had Queensland, which is a mine.
Yeah, it's a mine.
Right. But what else is in Queensland that the Liberal Party really like?
Bad beer.
Liberal Party voters, right?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So the whole thing was we don't want to give it to Victoria because we don't like Dan Andrews. We don't want to give it to South Australia because we don't like the Labor Party down there. I can't remember his name, but that dude is ripped. The Premier of South Australia, the new guy.
Malinowski.
Yeah, man.
He's got hot dad vibes.
I really want to see him just rip his shirt open on the Parliament floor and go, bring it, at question time.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd probably pay money, and I know a lot of people
Okay, I think you spend too much time alone.
I do.
Too much time. Okay.
So the argument could be made that that was a political decision. Let's put it in Queensland because we want to make Queensland happy. Even though we don't like Palaszczuk, we do like the Queenslanders and we want them to vote for us at the next election. So let's give them this great new military vehicle thing.
Okay.
Now, one of the things Australia does, we actually make really good military vehicles.
Yeah.
The Bushmaster is an absolute rocker.
And we send them to the Ukraine.
We send them we sent 50.
Yeah.
I hope they're still going. It'd be really embarrassing.
He said thank you.
Yeah.
Only just last week. He said they've been using them and they've been great.
They've been fantastic. Yeah, the warranty. How long does this warranty extend for?
Exactly.
It's 5 years or 150,000 bullet holes. Oh, okay, fine, no worries.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that. Now we do make stuff down here. There's another thing we've made. You're going to love this one. The ghost bat.
The ghost bat?
The ghost bat. Any ideas what it could be?
A plane.
You're very close.
A drone.
Correctamundo.
Yep.
Not only is it a drone, it's a really, really good drone.
Mm.
Right. It's an excellent drone. It's it's top-notch drone. The Americans, they used it in an exercise. Again, we're talking about this. They used it in an exercise, I think it was Talisman or Sabre or one of those ones up in Northern Australia. And the Americans are like going, this thing is the bomb. Can
Literally.
you put a bomb on
Yeah.
it? That's the only problem. It's just a surveillance platform.
Well, I love that. I love that we just come up with things that are really useful but don't kill multiple people.
Don't worry. I can guarantee you within a year's time, that thing will be killing people.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the thing, right? We've got to let everyone know that, hey, we're doing the right job and we're doing a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, and this is a really important point, is deterrence.
Yeah.
We want the other side to know what we've got. That may seem counterproductive, but secret weapons are absolutely useless unless you're in a war.
Yep.
So what is the biggest secret weapon that you can think of that we ever had?
The biggest secret weapon that Australians have had,
not Australia,
or just
but
in general?
Just in general. We're talking secret weapons in time of war.
Nuclear bomb.
Boom, that's it. The atomic program, right? The
Yeah.
nuclear program, that was hugely secret, but that was also hugely secret because they were in the middle of a war.
Yeah.
Right?
And the man who invented it, spent a lot of time regretting it.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
He had a lot of regret over making it because he never thought that it would be used in that way.
No, and sure enough, but you know what? That's the problem. Give a kid a firecracker, he will set fire to it. He will light the fuse.
And point it in someone's direction.
Point it in someone's direction. Yeah. Use it as a gun, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going pretty lights, it's like pretty lights that hurt your face, right? So this is the thing. You want them to know what you've got, right? That way it does two things. One, let's not call a war because that F-35 looks really good, or let's not start a war because that new nuclear submarine looks really good, or let's not start a war because that ghost bat really, it keeps looking in my window and embarrassing me when I'm in the shower. Right.
But it delivers a mean Domino's pizza.
Man, that thing can just drop a pizza on a dime. It just landed on my plate.
It's great.
Right? The other thing is it forces them to keep up. Right. Now, this is a great point if you want to look at what happened to the Soviet Union.
But if you want to stay ahead of someone, why do you need them to keep up?
You don't want no. Economically, it means they're pushing more money into their military program, so they're wasting more money. That's what happened with the Russians. The Americans went, let's get into an arms race, right? And the American economy was stronger, right? So they were able to take the lead in the arms race, and it broke the Russian economy. It really did, right? That was one of the reasons why the Soviet Union fell apart. They couldn't pay their soldiers.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, you've got that look on your face.
No. I'm just like, it's just boys and their toys. I mean, like when you think about what we spend our money on and how we could have actually just helped our country.
Exactly. All right. That's the point. These people are spending money on military equipment, and half the time it doesn't work. Right. This is the other thing, is the amount of money we spend on military equipment that we never even see. I can't remember how many millions it was on the submarines that didn't show up.
Yeah.
We had all of these helicopters, the Taipan helicopters that we were going to buy that.
And I don't even think those submarines are ever going to show up. Like, I think we're just spending money on something. But interesting.
That is the point of a submarine, though. You don't want it to ever show up. Right? You want it to never be seen.
But it's interesting because, like, our defense used to be quite good. And then in the 80s, like the late 80s, early 90s, we started pulling it apart and we started privatizing it.
Yes, boom.
So we started privatizing it. And then, and I know this because my father was in the Air Force.
Exactly.
And so a lot of who he worked for and what he worked around, because he was an airframe fitter, those jobs got privatized.
Exactly. Right. Now, this is the point. In the 80s, when the whole neoliberal ideology started kicking in with Thatcher and Reagan and globalisation became the big deal.
Yeah.
So we go back to the F-35 that's got bits of it made all over the planet, including the country that it's likely to be flying against.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy to me.
Globalisation has suddenly made defence. It was Eisenhower back on his last speech to the American people, President Eisenhower, who was also the general that led the D-Day invasion of Europe in World War II, basically warned the world, do not get caught in the thrall of the military-industrial complex.
Right.
But we have, right?
Yep.
We are now stuck in it. And the problem with that is there is so much money sloshing around in this system, right? So the whole idea is like the globalization of the arms industry. I was listening to a podcast just the other day, and it was a former member of BAE, which is the British
Aerospace Engineering.
Yep. Oh, well done. You know your stuff.
My dad then worked for BAE.
Of course, he worked for BAE, right? So this guy worked for BAE, and the other one was a defence journalist.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing they both said was a lot of journalists, when journalism started tanking, where everyone started cutting their newsrooms back, a lot of journalists went to places like Northrop and BAE and all of these different military companies to write their press releases, to be their journalist, in-house journalist, to start promoting the whole ideal of what they're doing. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, have you been to Canberra Airport recently?
Canberra Airport? No, I have not.
Stupid question, really. That look on your face which just said, why would I go to Canberra
Yeah, I
Airport?
mean, there are other places I would rather fly into.
There are better airports, shall we say. Right. Now, the next time you go to an airport, have a look around at who's advertising. Which military companies are advertising? Right. Raytheon has a lot of signs up around Sydney Airport. If you walk into Canberra Airport, it's almost every single billboard is a military organisation. Raytheon, Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, they all do it. Right. Why?
Because they want to get the politicians to pay attention.
Who are the one people that walk through that airport all the time?
Just the politicians.
Politicians.
Because no one is flying into Canberra.
Oh, no, occasionally I do.
What?
When I'm desperate.
Come on, it's like literally just down the road.
Sometimes I've got to get to my mother really quickly. She could be sick. I just want to go up there and I'm too lazy to drive.
By the time you drive to the airport, park your car, check in, get on the plane, you would have already been in Canberra.
Yep. True. But sometimes I just don't want to do Lake George. That section from Goulburn to Canberra is so boring.
Just get on a train.
Oh, no, that's worse. Okay. Have you caught a train to Canberra?
No, it's terrible.
Here's the thing. Please catch a train to Canberra, everybody. Because what happens is as you're coming into Queanbeyan, right, in the back, so round the back of
Does it split?
Lake George, no, you go past the Land Forces General Command, the bunker. Right? You drive past and you just see a tank behind a fence and you go, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Right. So here's the thing. These companies they know how much money is at stake. And it's a lot of money. It's a crazy amount of money. The US have turned around to all of the members of NATO and said you must spend at least 2% of your gross national product on defence. And wow, where's most of that money going to go? To America, because they're the number one factory for arms on the planet.
Yes, absolutely. Now, it's interesting because what we spent this year, which is $48 billion on defense spending, 48.6, is the same amount that Biden upped their defense spending.
Yeah, that was...
He upped it by 48.
That was a top-up. Our entire budget to him is you need a 5? Yeah, take 20.
And I should say, when I said trillion, it was 300 billion, not 300
yeah.
trillion. I kind of got a little bit excited about it. But it does come close to hitting the trillion by the time they add other things in. Because that's just like the defense spending. There's not the other stuff.
Now, the other thing about defense spending at the moment is, as you said, it's been privatized crazily.
Yeah.
Right, to the point where, you look at Afghanistan and you look at Iraq in particular, the number of private security firms that were in there. At one point, they estimated that there were more private security contractors in, I think it was Afghanistan, no, it might have been Iraq, in Baghdad, than there were military personnel, right? And now these guys, the thing about a military personnel is you have rules of engagement as a personnel. As a contractor, it depends on what the contract says.
But also, for a position such as my dad, who was, an airframe fitter and stuff like that, they had rules and they reported into someone and they were very, very strict with what they did. But what we find is once we privatize stuff, who's overseeing that stuff?
Exactly.
Who's making sure that those things are being put back to, because basically his job was to pull planes apart and put them back together again.
Go through and make sure that nothing's cracked.
Make sure everything's good. Who's doing that? Who's overseeing that work?
Exactly. Who's overseeing it? Well, hopefully you've got defence inspectors that come in. But here's the other thing, and this is a really important thing to remember, is the argument can be made that an organisation like Defence, which is so big, so bloated with money, the idea of corruption is not foreign to the Defence Department by any shape.
And I would imagine that it wouldn't be much cheaper to privatise something than to have people on the books.
Well, there's an interesting point to be made as well, as it's that classic thing of people that get redundancy packages.
Yeah.
My brother got redundancy package from Health. He was working for Health and he got a redundancy package, and then he bought a farm. he retired, bought a farm, and he was looking for a tractor. So he went to a field day just outside of Canberra in Murrumbateman to buy a tractor, and while he was there, he bumped into the Departmental Secretary of Health, who knew him quite well, and went, "Oh, Phil, look, I've got a meeting on Monday. I'd like you to step in." To which he went, I don't work for you anymore. And he went, "You don't?" He went, "No, you gave me a redundancy. I've retired. I'm out." And he went, "I want you at the meeting anyway." He went, "I don't work for you anymore." And he went, "Well, how about you become a consultant?" And he tripled the amount of money he made.
Exactly.
Straight
This is
away.
my point.
Right.
Like, I just don't, like, everyone wants to come in and privatize stuff. And in some regards, I do believe that that is good. I sometimes think with things like, you know, electricity and stuff like that, privatizing can work. Can work. Not gas.
Or electricity at the moment either, for that matter.
Yes, but also the government had never made money.
Well, also, we screwed ourselves.
We screwed ourselves.
Yeah.
We never put money into the poles and the wires, so the thing was falling apart.
Yeah.
So that's just a side note.
No, that's electricity. It's got nothing to do with spies. Actually, it does, but we won't talk about it. Anyway.
Yes, but I do think that, like, what we've seen now, consequently, is that the defence budget has blown out because we are paying people triple what they're worth.
We're paying too much money for what we're getting.
Yes.
I mean, here's a classic, is $500 million, $500 million to renovate the War Memorial. Now, before we go any further, I have a very, very soft spot for the War Memorial in
but
Canberra.
it doesn't deserve $500 million.
$500 million. But they've just topped it up to the tune of something like $40 or $50 million. And it's like, whoa.
Stop.
Here's the thing. Look at the board.
Yeah.
Members of that board are also members of
terrible.
Raytheon, Grumman, Lockheed,
Yeah.
all of it. And it's like, wait. This is a memorial to the honoured dead. It's not meant to be a fun park, right? And here's the thing, Avalon Air Show.
Yep.
I love the Avalon Air Show. Have you ever been?
Avalon Air Show, no.
Right, Avalon Air Show, they also have one down in Albion Park, right? And it's, you'll get, a Spitfire flyover and then an F-18.
I grew up watching air shows.
Yeah.
I had to go to air shows all the time. I spent a good portion of my upbringing looking into the sky.
Yeah, same here. I did that. Like, my father was the guy who did the flyby. He was lead pilot in the flyby for the opening of the Opera House.
But, like, the way we use, planes and stuff for air shows and planes in general, do you know what that's doing to the climate?
Do you also know how much it costs to, say, throw an F-18 Growler down
It's crazy.
The Brisbane River for Skyfire?
I
but
know.
again, Defence wants us to see this equipment in action.
Right.
Otherwise, we go, hang on, why?
But it's bad for the environment and it costs us a shit ton of money. Like, I don't understand why we need to do it.
Well, one thing, we do need our pilots to be very experienced at what they do. They've got to fly.
Oh, yeah, because the one thing we've learned out of COVID is what happens when you offload a shit ton of pilots. Qantas, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
When people want to fly again, you go, oh shit, we don't have any pilots who have got any kind of hours up over the past 2 years.
Put it this way, Ukraine, this is a perfect thing. Ukraine versus Russia.
Yeah.
All right. Russia has a much bigger air force. It's got a bigger army and everything. It's currently kicking Russia's ass because, one, the Ukrainian pilots were getting, I think, 600 hours a year in their aircraft, where the Russians were lucky to be getting 60.
And that makes a massive difference.
A huge difference, all right? It's the classic 10,000 hours to make an expert, right? So the more time you spend in the machine or a simulator, and a simulator is different. You don't get the physical stresses that you would in a plane. So this is the thing. We have we throw it out there so we as the people that are paying for this go, oh, that's great. Now, I did watch the video. My mother-in-law sent me because she lives right on the Brisbane River, sent me the video of the F-18 Growler. I love the way it's called, a Growler. That's fantastic. The Growler. The Growler going down Brisbane River, and you could hear the crowd going, oh yeah, whoa, and everyone's cheering and waving flags. And part of me went, yeah, and the other part of me went, oh, that's a bit weird. Right, but we do. It's this thrill of seeing this incredible machine flying through the sky. But, we can lose that incredible and very expensive machine literally in the blink of an eye.
Yes. And I mean, the biggest propaganda to have happened in like the last 6 months is the latest Top Gun movie. Have you seen the latest Top Gun movie with Tom Cruise?
Kidding?
It's actually amazing. But
well, the story's a bit naff.
I know, but
I don't care. I don't care.
But, this is all propaganda. America is great. Look at the might of our machines.
Yeah.
And I also love love how they didn't name the enemy; they called it the enemy. So you could just insert enemy here.
Well,
enemy. We're fighting the enemy. Look, here's what the enemy is doing.
Them.
There's the enemy, and you're like, you could just insert whatever enemy you imagine it to be.
Exactly, the ubiquitous them. Them. Now, here's the thing. Watch the end credits, and where it says, filmed on location at, they invaded Canada. They invaded Canada.
The Canadians deserved it.
Well, you know what? Hey, they're sitting up there with their free healthcare and stuff, hey, and being all polite. Let's shoot at them.
Yeah.
Right? Top Gun's a really, really good example of, like, the American Defense Department
propaganda.
Has a division specifically for this, for making movies.
And now when they were going out and promoting it, someone I work with who's on air at Nova got to go up in a fighter jet.
Oh, my God.
And he got the training. Oh, my God. I was so jealous as well.
so jealous.
Yeah, and he got the training, got to go up in the fighter jet. And, it was pretty scary stuff. They had to tell him what's going to happen. He almost blacked out. It was pretty crazy. But it was super expensive just for him to go up. And I'm like, this is all about promoting a movie.
Yes, but how much did it cost?
Propaganda.
How much did it cost to make that movie? Probably $500 million, or probably $200-300 million. Are you looking it up right now?
I am looking it up right now.
You are such a modern person.
I know.
Tell me what the budget is.
$170 million.
$170 million. That's pretty cheap considering it breached $1 billion, I think, in the first 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, as an investment goes, that's great. And you know what? If they borrowed that F-18 to take journalists up for a flight, you can be pretty sure that part of that $170 million budget went to that plane.
Yeah.
Right? So in a way, it's also we're kind of renting them out. Interesting point. Lockheed Martin now have a squadron of its own F-18s.
Do they?
That they can rent out. If you need an F-18 to invade them, aka Canada,
the enemy,
you can borrow them, right? For a neat little price. Probably more expensive than buying them. This is the thing. It's become the military-industrial complex, as Eisenhower said. And look, I'll find the audio and I'll see if we can tag it on at the end. But basically his speech said, look, if we don't keep an eye on the military-industrial complex, it's going to get out of control.
Well, I think what we're seeing, particularly in the US, they've upped their military spending, but they've pulled out of wars. So at the end of the day, what are they upping it for, and why are they spending all this amount of money on defense?
China. Right,
of course,
China.
Of course, China, but I don't think China's going to attack us anytime soon.
Well, not us, but what if they take Taiwan, and then everyone's got to get involved, right? So there is that also. Here's the next stage of it: is the demonization of we need them.
Yeah, but you know what? It sounds like just a big dick slinging contest.
Keep telling you, we need a milliner's table in the middle of the room, and everyone just flop it out and measure it, while all the girls just stand around, with martinis and champagne.
No,
going,
we'll actually solve the world's problems.
Yeah, exactly.
While you guys are sorting out your dick size, we'll get involved.
Oh, where are we measuring it from exactly?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So this is the thing. It's this is why I wanted to talk about it, because there's a really interesting question to come in, and basically. And it really comes down to this, is it's up to us as the voting population, as the people, to basically sit there and go, excuse me, why are we spending this much money on this?
Agreed.
We need to be educated. We need to maintain a focus on it. Otherwise, it's just going to get out of control.
Yeah, and I don't actually think that we've spent that much money on it. So in terms of what we have wasted cash on, I think we're
that's the other problem, is the amount of bloat and the amount of waste.
But I will say this as well. We are particularly vulnerable, and I do believe that we need to take the necessary steps to ensure that we can protect ourselves.
Bottom line is, can we please spend the money on the right stuff?
Yes.
Not the wrong stuff.
Like nuclear submarines that will never happen.
Can we, maybe we should just get really well armoured white flags and just chill out. No, that wouldn't work for me.
Yeah, well, we can just drink all that wine that we're failing to sell to China.
No, we just invite China to come down and drink it here.
I think it's a great idea.
Done.
G'day, Frosty here. I've snuck back in without Michelle to add this little bit at the end. I mentioned US President Dwight D. Ike Eisenhower's farewell address to the US in January 1961, where he talks about the military-industrial complex. It's an eerily prescient speech when you consider what we've been talking about this ep, so I thought I'd let you listen and consider it for yourselves. Make of it what you will. And thanks again for listening.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action. so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.